Good evening, everyone. This is Vera Sadler with VLS Coaching and Women of Life Ministries, and I'm so excited that you're here for another episode of Tuesday Talk Live. As you know, I'm always excited about being on this show on Tuesday because I have the privilege of bringing on friends, guests, and those I know that God has ordained for us to have on here. And tonight, it is one of my favorite people. Why? And I haven't known her as long as I've known some of my other guests, but I've known her long enough to get to know her life, to know her in the spirit. And she's one of my favorite people because she was the publisher of my first book. Yay! But I bring to you tonight Dr. Nikia Hammonds-Blakely, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself, where she hails from, talk to her a little bit, and then we're going to get into a candid conversation tonight about life, about progress, about going forward, and just about hearing the voice of God. Dr. Nikia, I want you to share with the people tonight about hearing the voice of God and whatever He puts on your heart. Because for me, when I met you and just learned a little bit about your story, I learned that it doesn't have to stop where the enemy tries to make it stop, but God uses everything to propel you forward. And then how you kept going. And man, when I saw your pictures online that you got your doctorate, but I'm not going to talk too much right now. I'm going to want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody so they can learn about the wonderful woman of God that I know.
Well, first, thank you so much, Miss Vera. Coach Vera, extraordinary. It was nothing but divine providence that brought you into my life. And let me just say, if you're viewing for the first time, or for those of you that follow VLS coaching every Tuesday, you already know Miss Vera is a blessing to the kingdom. She's a blessing to the community. And I just thank God for the voice that He has established through you on this earth. From day one, you know how you just meet people and you know that they're solid. You know there's something in your spirit that just agrees. And from our very first even consultation for publishing, we prayed that, God, if this is your will, let there be some feeling of mutual agreement in our spirits to let us know this is your divine reason, this is your divine timing. It's an assignment for us both to embark upon. And truly, I think from beginning to end, we both knew that God's hand was on it. And you produced such a wonderful work. I know you probably talk about it all the time, but as your proud publisher, I do want to put the plug out for any just tuning in that may be hearing for the first time. Coach Vera has produced a wonderful work called Memoirs of a Survivor, Reflections of God's Intervention, Blessings, and Purpose. And I believe we'll talk a little bit about that today. But the journey just to connect was nothing short of divine. But as she said, my name is Dr. Nikia Hammonds-Blakely, and I'm the proud founder of I Champion Publishing. I am an entrepreneur that started this work actually during the pandemic. Like many of you, the COVID-19 and that outbreak changed everything. I was working in corporate America for Susan G. Komen. They are the world's largest breast cancer foundation currently here in the U.S., based headquartered in Dallas. And I was working my dream job as a corporate sponsorship on the corporate sponsorships team. And I am a breast cancer survivor. Actually, this month marks a 2-time 30-year survivor.
Wow.
Yes, diagnosed the first time when I was only 16 years old. I'm currently 46. And so as of this month, I'm a 2-time 30-year survivor. The second diagnosis came in my mid-30s, and I did lose both breasts in the journey, had to have reconstruction, several treatments and procedures along in the years and along the journey. But let me tell you, God's purpose just prevailed in it all. And anyway, I was working my perfect job. And when the pandemic hit, they literally shut the company down, sent everyone home with their laptops, and began massive layoffs. The company never has returned back to the building. But I was one of those first cuts, and I was devastated because we were already facing a national pandemic. And so, on a basic level, I was concerned about my health as a um, cancer survivor. My immune system, is one that can suffer compromise fairly easily. So I was afraid on that level. And then it took away my only stream of income, and income I was proud of and worked hard to get, and it was gone overnight. And I heard the Lord one day during the pandemic and in the time of prayer. When I tell you, it was completely out of the blue. It was a hard shift, a hard left that he just impressed upon my heart to start a publishing company. And publishing is not something you go to school for. It's not, I didn't, as a little girl, say, oh, I want to publish books when I grow up. It was nowhere on the radar. But I knew it was divine in that he showed me where this pandemic would open up a time where people would be forced to be at home, and they would escape the busyness of their life, and they had time to pause and process some of the experiences that they've been through, some of the traumas that they've been through over their life, and that God was even giving opportunity and pause for people that he put ministry assignments on the inside of, but they just never made the time to get it out. And the pandemic was going to allow for a time of pause for people to complete the assignments that God had on their life. And sure enough, here we are 56 authors later, and these are all first-time authors. 56 authors later, it was in obedience to a devastating time in our life, but it produced a miracle. So I'm definitely not only a witness of how God's faithfulness and sovereignty can come through hard times, but even in this entrepreneurial vein, it's important that we are constantly attuned to the ear and the voice of God, because he may cause us to go in a direction that we never foresaw for ourselves, but we have to be obedient.
Wow, that is a whole lot, but it's so powerful. No, it's so powerful because I'm listening, and I said, first of all, you're working at the place that sponsors the breast cancer, and you're a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And so many people would, when I started out saying that life doesn't have to define where you go.
Yeah.
And Dr. Nikia, in those moments, what shifted you just to even have that get up and go, and to the drive that you have? Because most people wouldn't have the drive that you have coming through some of those tragedies. What people would say, I don't want to call them tragedies. I want to call them challenges.
Yeah.
Because out of situations, it's how we focus, right? It's how we look at them, because life happens to everyone.
Yeah.
And we're not always dealt the cards we want.
Yep.
My Lord, just at 16 years old, that be said that this is where you are. I mean, that has to be quite devastating for a 16-year-old. And then to think, okay, I'm past this, then at 30 something to hear it again. But your life, to look at you and where you are and what you've done. And I know you're a worship leader. I've heard you worship. I've been at a place where you did a concert in worship, and the worship that pours out of you, none of it speaks to sorrow. How have you, speak to that just a little bit, because I've heard you worship.
Yeah.
You have an amazing voice, but it's not just always the voice, it's the sound that comes out of it.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying, right?
I do. Can I just first say a scripture that from the beginning, when you even just introduced this conversation, this is what stuck out to me. Many are the plans in a man's heart.
Yes.
But it is God's purpose that will prevail. And at the end of the day, that's it. And that's
yes.
We make plans for our life, whether it's spiritually or practically, or in business or in finance or in our family and our marriage. We make plans of how we want to see things turn out. But we have to know that while many are the plans in a man's heart, ultimately it is God's purpose that will prevail. Yes, Proverbs 19 and 21. Thank you. And we have to be willing to submit to whatever the greater purpose is that may interrupt our plan. And if you had to ask me in a nutshell what I did or how I got there, I realized, OMG, life is not going in the direction of my plan, my thought. So what can I do? I have to submit to the current purpose of God for my life and submit that plan to his purpose.
Oh, my Lord.
Submit that plan to his purpose. Now, I can tell you 1,000,000 examples and times in my life where that has happened. I could give you literally 1,000,000 examples of times in my life when I felt moments that I had it all. I had a direction I desired to take. And I knew that God wanted me to do something different. And it had to be a choice. Now, I can't say that every time I chose his purpose over my plan, but I can tell you this. Every time I overrode his purpose and tried to continue with my plan, he interrupted my plans.
Wow.
Until I submitted to his purpose. And at the end of the day, life is a constant, a daily choice to submit your plan to his purpose. And that is it in a nutshell. And something happens when we submit to the purpose, even when it's scary, when it's unknown, when it's hard, when it causes us to cry. I'm telling you, the most beautiful experiences come out of that. That's where we grow. That's where the blessing is. When I'm imagining Jesus when he was recruiting disciples, if you will, and the story of when he told them, cast your net here, like they had been fishing all day, nothing happened. And they were professional fishermen. They had a plan. They had strategies of how they were going to gather this fish. But in the most opportune time, in the most inopportune way, I mean, he tells them, now cast it. And I'm like, Jesus, are you crazy? This is not how this works. I'm telling you, this won't work. He says, cast it now. He tells them to cast it, meaning his purpose, not in their way, in their time, in their strategy. He tells them to cast it. The net literally breaks with fish because provision follows purpose. Provision does not follow your plan. It follows his purpose. Wherever he says cast the net, the fish will be there. That's where the fish are. It's wherever his purpose is. And that is a lesson that I have not, what they say, what the scripture says, I count on myself to have apprehended. I have not mastered this lesson, but I am very aware that this is the formula. I've seen it over and over and over. And so in a short answer to your question, I know that was the long way around it. The short answer is when you say, how did you get to the point of pulling yourself up and making yourself, there were some days I didn't pull myself up. There were some days I had to let go.
Wow.
I had to let go and say, Lord, seriously, you take this, have your way, because I have no idea what I'm doing here. I don't know what this looks like, but I believe this is what you said. So I'm letting go. I'm submitting to what you have in mind. Now let's see how this play out. And when I tell you the net began to break and I say, my God, you are God. Okay.
Yes.
As far as my thoughts are from the heavens is as far as your thoughts are, like you have a whole different way of seeing this than what I would have. So, wow, I could have did a shortcut to just listen to you from the beginning.
Wow, that's so good. That's so good because when you say his provision has purpose, and I haven't mastered that yet either. I'm going to be honest, because there's some days I'm like, Lord, I don't see my way. I don't see how this is going to work out. I don't see. But you're right when you say sometimes when we just like, I can't, we just back up. It's almost like how they say to surrender, throw your hands, and you're like, and then when our hands are done and when our hands are off, you start to see his movement. And I will say there are times I'm still just amazed how he works it out when we let go, because we're so busy trying to work it. We're so busy trying to figure it out. And then when we move back, you don't even have to move. You just let go, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And he just blows our mind, our spiritual mind, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
I am just amazed how God can take just, it's like the word, it's the seed that he planted in us from before the foundation of the earth. Said, I'm just waiting to allow the seed to water it, plant it, germinate, and to bring forth what I've put inside of you. But I need you to understand that it's there. For me, that's what I think. He keeps telling me it's always been there. It's always in you. I've always had this purpose. Even what I'm doing now, I tell people all the time, even when they come on the show, I've never seen myself doing this. I love people. I love engaging with people. I love encouraging people. But this, no way. You would never got me sitting here talking to people on camera and
Yeah.
constantly trying to do this. But when I said, okay, God, whatever you say,
Yeah.
however you say, whenever you say, then you see yourself, just you go places you never thought. And I think, I don't know about for you, but sometimes when we try to bring forth the outcome,
Yes.
instead of just letting him bring forth the outcome,
Yeah.
it's different.
We mess it up. We
Yes.
mess it up. And you know what we're guilty of doing sometimes? Is trying to help the process along.
Yes.
We can even see what he's doing. We could hear a word that he's given us, but we try to expedite it.
Hmm.
Like, Lord, let me just help you. There's a faster way to get this done.
Hmm.
There's a faster way. And our way is not his way. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's not just submitting to the what,
Hmm.
it's submitting to the how.
Hmm.
Many of us are in agreement to the what. So let's say you feel called to start a business, or you feel called to launch a new ministry, or to start a family,
Hmm.
whatever it is. We're in agreement with the what, but it's the how.
Hmm.
That's where we tend to lose our way and try to figure it out or help God. And there are a million biblical examples, and Lord knows there are a lot of earthly examples of people who take the word and the what and then try to expedite it in their own way. And that causes us stress and turmoil and delayed manifestation, because we also have to be careful to get step-by-step
Hmm.
instructions on the how. And sometimes the process will be longer and harder than what we would have desired. Can I give you just
Yes,
one
please just
example
share
of this?
however the Lord is leading you to share.
You mentioned that recently I've become Dr. Nikia Hammonds-Blakely. That is a recent development, um, just in the last year. To God be the glory. But let me tell you this: that has been a 16-year journey. Um,
Wow.
I entered my PhD program in my late 20s, and I had gone straight through, undergrad, went, got my MBA. And even if I had paced myself and took my time, my mind was PhD at 33. That was my personal goal. It was a chant. My whole family knew it. All my close friends knew it, because I was scheduled to be done maybe by 29, 30. So PhD by 33 was my plan and my goal. Do you not know that I went all the way through it? Um, Practically a A student. And I received a letter from the university that said, "Congratulations, you've now completed all of your coursework successfully. You've successfully completed all of your residencies." I had three colloquiums and residencies across the country. I had to attend all these writing workshops, all of that, and I was at the finish line. The last step was um, submitting my dissertation and getting approval of the dissertation. Um, and I was just elated. Short time later, I received another letter from the same university saying, "But we're sorry to say you've reached your lifetime limit of financial aid." And I didn't know there was a lifetime limit. I was just getting student loans to fund my education throughout the way. And they said, uh, can't continue to the next semester unless you pay
Wow.
cash. And the cost was like $4,000 a semester, and I would need to have at least 4 more semesters to completely finish the dissertation process and defense and all of that good stuff. So we're looking at $20,000 bill cash before I can complete. I was devastated. And I don't know if any of you or you, Coach Vera, have ever been in a situation where you felt like you were this close. You were this
And
close,
can't get there.
almost at the finish line. And it just, and so months passed, a year passed, and I would write letters to the school. Please let me back. What can I do? Can I work it off? Can I do this? 3 years passed. Ms. Vera, 5 years, 7 years, 9 years, 10 years, and it goes on and on. And do you not know that in 2022, I believe it was, randomly, I'm serving at a conference? Because again, we're talking about the difference between our plan and our path and the purpose of God, and how the purpose of God will manifest the promise so much faster.
Woo.
I'm serving at a conference in Orlando, Florida. And it was a Christian conference, and there was an entrepreneur on the screen, and he was doing a open mic discussion Q&A. And he had finished the session really and said, really, I have maybe 5 more minutes. I could take one more question. I'm all the way in the balcony. And something prompted me to raise my hand. And they handed me the mic all the way up there in the balcony. And this is very uncharacteristic of me. I began to share this story of how I reached the end of my PhD journey, but did not have the finances to complete. And I didn't know what the Lord was going to do with this basically unanswered prayer and broken dream. And instead of him giving me practical advice, because in this setting, this particular presenter was giving financial strategies and how to rebuild your credit and things like that. And so instead of him giving me practical advice, he began to prophesy and say, you're going to finish that degree. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ensure of it. Keep up with me after this. And he began to pray, and the whole place began to pray. And I'm just standing there weeping in this moment, because I'm like, wow, is this a divine moment? Fast forwarded, I kept in touch with him, but little did I know, we met in Orlando, Florida. But he was actually from Dallas, and with plans to start his own Christian university. They ended up offering me their first ever scholarship, full scholarship to complete my degree, accepted all of my credits, and I was able to start exactly where I left off, which was the dissertation process. And I became the valedictorian of their first graduating class in 2023. In July of 2023. Time goes so fast. I'm trying to keep up.
Yes.
In December of 2023, became the valedictorian of their graduating class. Didn't pay a dime. It was a 16-year wait.
I'm trying to not cry, okay, Nikia?
Just telling you a dream that I thought was all but dead. Because not only the amount of money I would have to pay, but do you know, in 16 years, the curriculums change at school. They could have even said, now you need to retake these classes, or if the distance between finishing was, and I finished that degree. Produced a 500-some page dissertation based on all the research and things that I had done from years before. And God gave me strategy for even that. I was able to hold some focus groups, pick up practically where I left off, spent days closed away writing. And he gave me chapter for chapter, how to write it, what to do, put that 500-some pages.
That's a lot.
And graduated. And here I sit, Dr. Nikia Hammonds-Blakely, without a dime. And nobody could do that but God.
Yes.
That was the distance between my plan and his purpose.
Whew. Okay, so I'm trying to regroup so we can keep talking.
I'm telling you. It's crazy.
For those who are just now joining, I'm having a conversation with Dr. Nikia Hammonds-Blakely of iChampion Publishing Company. But we are talking about how things can happen and you think it defines or it ends you. But she just gave such a wonderful testimony of how the distance between your plan and God's plan and what God can do when you have to take your hands off of it. Man, most people think will say, okay, that was in the past and they let go of their dreams. So I hope those who are listening to this conversation just now said, if God didn't say it was done, it's not done. If God didn't, but just let God work out the plan.
Yeah.
Man, there's things that I know the Lord has said to me and he has promised me or things he's given me. And there's been times in my life when I said, well, I guess it's over,
Yeah.
but it's not, because just that encouragement right there, Nikia, just tells me, in no disrespect, because I know you've earned all your credit, but we're sisters. I just call you Nikia. But that alone just says, when God's plan is, he says he has a plan for us to bring us to an expected end, an end of good and not evil.
Yes.
And sometimes the enemy wants us to focus on the bad,
Yes.
the chaos. But God says, I have a plan to bring you to an expected end, and that end is good. And the enemy doesn't want us to think about that good. And the steps we have to take to get there, sometimes it's a process.
Yes.
We want to interrupt the process.
One.
Yeah, and sometimes we interrupt the process so we don't get to the product. He had me at one time teaching there's a process to the product. We want to get the product, but we don't want the process to get there. Everything that's made in life is a process to make it. Yeah. And for our making, there's a process. And you just spoke about that 16 years of making of who you are, and the process of creating, the process of getting let go from a company in a place that you loved working because it spoke to you and something that was important to you. But that was the making of I Champion Publishing that has served so many. And definitely give a shout out to that. And those of you who are in the process, like she said, that God has put something in you. Go to her website, I Champion Publishing on Facebook. They have a Facebook page. You also have a website. Listen, if you need a publisher who, one, pays attention, who has your back, who is spiritual, who will guide you every step of the way. You do not want to sleep on this woman here, right here. I speak from personal experience, of course. And not only she's published other people, she is a publisher herself. I know this isn't your only book. I know you have several, but I bought this one because it spoke to me about power. And this one I bought was a couple's guide for living as champions in marriage. Power, where there is unity, there is strength. Now, because I bought this so I can read about how, because my husband's a business owner, I was launching business. There's so many times that we're doing things in different spheres of life, but how do we come together? Man, this book was so powerful about talking about getting into those different places, and then you touch on some very sensitive areas in marriage, in life, in intimacy, man, guys, I encourage you to really get this book if you are struggling in any area of walking together in a relationship. And it was written by her and her husband, Darren. Shout out to you, brother Darren, today. Wonderful man of God. But Dr. Nikia, when you launched this, and you had people coming to you, you said something key earlier. You said, we asked God, what's this supposed to be?
Yeah.
Show us where we're supposed to work together. And I know when I met you, it wasn't just, because I've reached out to other publishers before, but when I met you, it was something that we linked up that I said, I know this is someone I can trust with what I'm trying to say, with the message I'm trying to get out. And I see the people that publish, on your website, that the books that you're putting forth, I believe that you have a heart to deliver a word and get a message out. Tell us a little bit more about I Champion Publishing and just your heart for God's people. And not even just, I'm sure they don't have to be believers, that you'll publish whatever God allows you to send your way, but just give us a little bit more about the ministry of I Champion Publishing.
Wow, thank you for the opportunity to do so. So even in the name champion, for me, that signifies a person who has gone round after round.
Mhm.
And maybe they've been knocked down a few times, but at the end of the day, they know how to get back up, and they are more than a conqueror. They are a champion in whatever respective area. So, even in the name, it implies that it's a clarion call for people who maybe life have thrown them a few blows, but they didn't just absorb it and become bitter, but they found ways to be better. And not only are they trying and they're on a journey to live at their highest level as a champion, that
Mm.
champion level of living, but they're trying to model the way for others and give a roadmap, give a hand up, give a inspiration to inspire other champions. And so through the publishing company, we're hoping to give voice to people who have not only been through traumatic experiences, but they are using their life, their stories to the best of their ability to help someone else make it through. So, our very first author was a breast cancer survivor like myself. Um, Again, God put it in my heart that to publish books, but I didn't know what to do with that or where to start. And a friend of mine asked for us to have coffee, and she said, "You know what, sis? I feel like the Lord is telling me to write a book, and I have no idea where to start." And we both almost laughed because I shared the Lord. Well,
Mhm.
I shared the vision where I think the Lord is telling me to publish. And in that moment of coffee, I said, "Well, how about we just take a chance on each other? You step out there as a first time author, I'll step out there as a first time publisher. We'll figure this out together and let's experience it together." And so I launched it for her, really, and thinking, okay, maybe Lord, this is what you had in mind. And by the time we launched Her Voice, we had a book, we had another referral and another. And it started off as telling breast cancer stories similar to mine, but ultimately it grew to include stories of people who have been through abuse, people who have struggled in marital relationships. Even one of my favorites, and she doesn't even consider herself a writer, but she did a book for single women who are basically kissing a lot of frogs along the way, and it
Oh
was
wow, that's a
a
sounds good.
hilarious tale of how Christian women, their journey of dating. And it's one of my favorites at this point because, again, she was telling real stories of real people who are just, Lord, I'm trying to hear your voice, but my God, it's some crazy folk out here, and how do I navigate it? And so, and we evolved from telling not only biographical stories or autobiographical stories, but we've done cookbooks, we've done children's books, we've done devotions, we've done fitness, health and fitness, in the whole gamut. So
Mhm.
again, there was a whole world waiting on the other side of the unknown for us. I gave God a yes, and not knowing what was going to happen with the first author.
Mhm.
Now here we are, 56 authors later. So if you're interested, my website is simply my name, NikiaHammonds-Blakely.com, and you can find all of the ministry outlets that we provide. Champion Publish is one of them. NikiaHammonds-Blakely.com /Champion Publishing.
Did
Uh,
I spell it right, sis?
that's correct.
Okay.
That's it. I also do some consulting for people who want to launch conferences and events and things like that. And any and all things that we do are found there on the site.
And so for those who are interested in publishing and do this, and not just, well, I may have to reach out to you about the conference because I want to put together a bigger conference and on the scope that I have been doing, because I Women of Life Ministries, which VLS coaching falls under Women of Life Ministries, but we've done conferences every year, twice a year. But God has placed on my heart to do something at a different level. And I just have been thinking, how, God, can I put this to the level and the magnitude that I really foresee God saying? So I may have to reach out to you on that, because I just see God saying He wants to bring together more women, but from all different ages and different things. And I have this thing in my mind, but I probably need to brainstorm with somebody like you who can put it together, or just talk to me about it. But
Yeah.
I wanted to share something that really, another thing that blessed me about you being in this vein because you said something that said I gave God a yes. And when we give God a yes, there's so many other sometimes our yes, God to use somebody else when we're stubborn and we don't say yes.
Yes.
But your yes, I always like to use the Pied Piper analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Your yes brought so many other people behind you
Wow.
because those 56 authors behind you, it allowed them to give God a yes as well. So, but when with your yes came the ability for others to step out, it's probably out of their comfort zones. Guys, this wonderful woman of God, not only does she walk alongside you, help you, you will be blown away of the service because there are people that you can go to these online services, but you're not going to get that hands on. You're not going to get that loving touch. It's like you partner with your best friend, your big sister, but sometimes your friends don't tell you what you need to hear
Mm.
and your sister going to be like, oh, whatever, they don't take care. But this is that best friend, big sister, but also the spiritual oomph and correction you need at the same time. I
Wow.
think that's what you offer, Nikia, when somebody partners with you on their project,
Wow.
because it's not just what I need to hear as a friend coming along. Hey, girl, oh, it's great you're publishing a book, but it's also, well, you need to fix this.
Yeah.
This is not what you should say, or this is what you can't say.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we think we could just write anything in a book. And I remember I had written some things. I had a lot of stuff already written down. And you're like, well, you need to change this because, you need someone like you that knows the legalities. I
Yeah.
can't get my words right of a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the need sometimes of the personal touch that your company provides.
Wow. I appreciate that so much. And if I had to add one more analogy to that, yes, we try to be a friend. Yes, we try to be a coach. But I also see myself very much as a midwife. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are many people who have a baby inside of them, and some are fully ripe and ready for delivery, and some have complicated birth processes.
Wow.
Some are breech, some are threatening miscarriage if not placed in the right hands. And when I get a project, it becomes my baby as well.
Mhm.
I take those projects to God in prayer and I try to handle them carefully as though they're my own because I know for some, these are first time mamas or these are older age mamas that have high risk pregnancies, and if you don't handle this
Wow.
baby right, they may not have another one. And so I don't want to be the one that's guilty of aborting assignments or precious
Oh
babies,
my gosh.
because if they're not delivered right, there may never be another one to come. And I pray to make someone's experience pleasant enough or palatable enough or easy enough that the next time the Lord drops a baby in your spirit, there won't be an abortion. There won't be
Mm.
the tendency to say, oh, no, 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 this isn't for me. Yeah, it's for you. It is for you. And if anything, I try to expedite my authors along because some things, if you take too long, you'll talk yourself out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let life get in the way, life will get to life, and you'll never finish that project. So from beginning to end, our authors average 3 to 4 months. Like let's come on in this door, let's get this work done, and let's get this baby in the hands of your people so that they can be blessed. And it, we're not going to labor a whole long time with it. And so we've kind of fine-tuned the process, and that's the other advantage I believe we offer, to get it done not only professionally but quickly, before life takes over your life,
Oh
our
yeah.
life, the world's life. So
Oh yeah. And it was such a joy in the um the helping me design.
yeah.
I would have never come up with this design, but with this design on the front of this cover, it really speaks to how I felt.
Mm,
That design, I mean, I thought I had it in my head
yeah.
when you helped me design the cover. So we have graphic artists, we have this, uh, all of that. But it didn't stop there. The launch party,
Hmm.
that was so much fun.
Yes, it
And
was.
then it was a lot of fun. So, but I will say that this woman of God didn't just do that. I hosted my own launch party after that, and you were there as a support, as a friend.
Yeah.
I appreciated that so much. I can't, I don't even know if you know how much that meant to me. You had already held a launch party. We hosted one at a location that we had planned. But then when I did my own, you
Yeah.
were there to support me. It wasn't like, well, I already did my part. I'm done with you.
Oh
You
no.
still came alongside and you were there with me in an event I held myself. So I just, I don't know if people are getting the gist of what I'm trying to say. That this is a place where you can feel, you know, the power of God is working in that project because you have a woman who has said yes,
Mm,
and that yes means so much. Like when I say yes to ask God, is this somebody I need to coach? I am actually praying over, what do I say to them, God? How do I help them move from being stuck where they are? How do I, what words? It's not, I can think all day what I want to think about what's going on,
yeah.
but it's not my words. It's, God, what does this person need for me to say to move them to the next level in life? And I really felt like that's what you did with that book. And I'm already writing down all the topics for the next one so that we can get this project. You know, I've done a little journal and I've done my little boundary workbook, but that's not this.
Oh, I can't let you. I have to pause there if you don't mind. Even after the launch, we participated in the launches as you described. I got the opportunity to be a part of one of your sessions. You did a coaching mentorship session on boundary setting that has absolutely
Oh,
blessed me so much.
oh, thank
I have
you.
incorporated that. I'm telling you, if no one was writing notes and all of that, because in as much as my God, I do want to please God, I'm also very guilty of trying to overplease people. And sometimes in the desire to please people, you can just be overwhelmed with trying to be all things to all people at all times. And your teaching on boundary setting was transformative for me, to the point that just last night, it's hilarious. Just last night, I was with some friends. I had a great friend to come in town, and I just want to see you for a little bit. I said, okay, but listen, I have a bedtime. I'm in the bed by such and such. Funny story. Anyway, and I made a few minutes, but I made it very clear to these ladies, listen, I have a long day tomorrow. I'm going to bed. I'm leaving y'all at a certain time. And the comment that she made to me was, oh, sis, I love you so much. Thank you for making time for me. But you ain't playing about your boundaries. When you set a boundary, you mean that thing. And she even texted this morning laughing like you wasn't playing. You set your boundaries. And there's no one, I've never had a compliment from somebody on, wow, good job at setting boundaries.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that's the journey, that's the process that I've been on, and
Hmm.
you had a lot to do with that, and
Well, praise God, I appreciate
I
that.
wanted to thank you for that.
I appreciate that. And I just flashed that book up there because I am in the process of selling that. It's available now on Amazon, but I am going back to the second memoirs of a survivor, and I will be hitting you up for that because that one I don't want to do on my own. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
That was just a simple workbook. I had already did, but
for
I
sure.
will be back to you for the memoirs and the other book, the devotional that you and I we talked about working on.
Yeah.
I'm cleaning it up before I get it to you. It's a lot of work, Nikia. But I do want our guests to realize what a jewel you are to the kingdom and what they have when in it, if they see your journey, because we didn't speak a lot about some more of your journey, they can look at you and say, oh, well, she went through cancer and she did this and she got a great husband and she got a great life, but it's not always that pretty.
Girl.
Ministry takes its toll. People will look, and I know for a fact for myself, so, and I know you being in the position you are, that darts come, attacks come. Just, I don't want you to go, you don't have to go deep into that, but just speak to the fact, and even family don't always appreciate since you mentioned the boundaries, the things that we have to do to be where God has told us, like even launching a business or even the different things, Dr. Nikia, that you've had to do to say this yes. Yes, with the business. Yes, with your life. Yes, with the walking in agreement with your husband, Darren. I mean, I'm sure there's some sacrifices you two have had to make to give God your yes. That and other people don't understand it, I'm sure.
I, I,
I'm and try not to cry because I know this guy probably is hard.
girl. When I tell you, let me, I'll just say yes. That most people literally just have no idea. They see the common phrase is the glory without the story or
Mm-hmm,
something.
mm-hmm.
And every glory that you see or that you think you see has story behind it, layers and layers of story. For every smile, there are jars of bottled tears that
Mm.
no one will ever see. And nothing about this life, this road, this assignment, this journey is easy. Nothing about it. In fact, the most, if you're a person that people think is dependable, if you are dependable, there's no one that's more taken for granted and often abused than the dependable people, because you're just like a chair. People big and small just come and sit down and put their whole weight in that chair, rear
Oh,
back in it, and they don't think twice about, can this chair stand the weight? They don't think,
wow.
because chairs are just dependable. And you sit in it, whether you're 40 pounds or 400 pounds, you go and you just sit in that chair and you put all your weight on it and do your business. And when you get up, no matter how long you've sat in that chair, if it was 5 minutes or 5 hours, you don't get up and say, thank you, chair. I appreciate you
Mm.
holding me up. Thank you. Wow. And chair, you know what? You've been sitting there for 5 years doing this. Thank you, chair. No, you are as thankless as a dependable chair. And that's how it is sometimes in life. And but those are cases where we have to know that our crown is more in heaven than it will ever be on earth. The more dependable you are, the more thankless your life is likely to be, because people expect you to perform at the level you perform and do what you do. It's an expectation. It's an expectation. And that life is very hard. My husband and I even reference in that book, we're celebrating 19 years this year. Nothing about it has been easy, and nor do we try to paint it like it is. The worst thing we could ever do is try to present to people like, yeah, this is, and that's the danger of social media and all of that, is
Mm-hmm.
we can often try to advertise a life that doesn't really exist. We show the highlights without
Mm-hmm.
showing people the story. And so even in that book, we addressed everything from
Mm-hmm.
when you go through finances, when you go through
Mm-hmm.
infidelity, when you go through,
Yes, you
there was
did.
a chapter in the book that spoke to, what do you do if your spouse wakes up one day and say, not only do I not want to be married, but I want to be married to somebody of the opposite sex. My husband experienced that. That
Mm-hmm.
was a painful chapter,
In his
painful
way.
experience, but it makes us and shapes us into who we are. So all that said, oh my, we all have, none of us look like what we've been through. The truth is, don't be so quick to admire somebody else's life, and God don't even wish for it,
Yes.
or be envious, because you have no idea that the grass may look greener on the other side, but it's because of the amount of water they had to put in the,
Woo.
okay, it that's what it is. And if you can't pay the water bill, don't you go looking over there at your neighbor's grass, because honey, their bill is higher. The bill
Yes.
is higher. So
Oh my gosh. That is so good. And I remembered that from the book because um there's some chapters in here. Like, I like this one, the case for counseling, because
Oh,
so many times we don't realize we need help.
yeah,
We
yeah,
can't do this alone.
mhm,
Um,
yeah,
how to keep grief and, from killing our marriage, the pain. We go through things that
yes,
we don't want people to realize that there's some pain in the process sometimes. There's some pain in getting where we're going, but if we can make it through the pain, if we cannot hold on to the pain. But so I really encourage those, especially couples who
yeah,
are trying to navigate being to really operating into the levels that you really say God has called you to
yes,
get this book.
yeah.
A-
Can I add one thing?
yes, ma'am.
And that kind of book and tool is not just for newlyweds. No, sir,
Mm-mm.
and no, ma'am. I don't care if you've been married 25 years. Sometimes the longer longevity couples were the ones who need it the most. Why?
Mhm.
Because we get settled into routines, and that would tend to make us more roommates in after 30 years if there hasn't been intentional effort to continue to learn the updated version of each other. And
Oh God.
oh yes, and have constant communication of, because what I liked 20 years ago, I may be a whole different woman now. And what your husband desired 30 years ago, he may have a whole different set of likes now. And if you don't have the updated version of who your spouse is becoming, and if they don't have the updated user manual of what it takes to fulfill your needs and what your present day needs are, you could be literally floating in different directions and not realize it, because there isn't fights happening, but there isn't connection happening either. So everybody needs tools to continue to be the closest, most maximum version of themselves as they can be. Some days we can do that alone through prayer and fasting and relationship with God, but other times we do need assistance in the form of coaches, counselors, to be an outside perspective and give a
Mhm.
fresh view on something
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
maybe we've been regurgitating for years and in cycles and circles. And there's no shame in coupling prayer, of course, but with
Professional help and tools.
professional help.
And I would love if you, my gosh, our guests need to hear from you and Brother Darren together, because this, I'm telling you, when I read this book, I was like, oh, really, like, and I'll just touch on this. And I mean, I'm not trying to bring shame to myself or anybody, but remarriage,
Yeah, yeah,
um,
absolutely.
remarriage. And lots of times we don't, and I'm just going to be honest, we don't deal with it enough in the
Yeah,
body of Christ,
yes,
because we try to cover it up a little bit. But there are a lot of couples, we deal with marriage, but we don't deal with the ministry of remarriage.
yes,
And I'm sorry, there are a lot of couples that need that healing. Okay,
yeah,
we know that you are in this bond, blended families and stuff, but
yes,
you guys talk about this and
yes,
how I know I came into it with the mindset I'm not dealing with that type of thing ever
hmm,
again. So when it surfaces, who is there to help me process through that?
that's it.
Because you already have that mindset, and
Mhm.
then when things happen, you go back to your old way of thinking, your old traumas come up. Man, we
Yes,
need so much help. So but
tools.
you need tools that will tell you, no, it's not just that person. You got some issues. You And we don't deal with that, Dr. Nikia. So I appreciate that you guys were very transparent.
Yeah,
You guys were very transparent and very open in this book, and you discussed things that the body, the church, is not, that we don't say across pulpits, that maybe need to be said, or we don't say them in Bible studies or groups, that we
yes,
need to openly share. And I think that's a good opportunity for those who want to partner with you for
mhm,
doing those conferences and those events that maybe God has led you to say, hey, I can help you even host those events, that maybe we need to be having those conversations. I mean, I didn't know how this conversation was going to go. I
sure.
just thank God that he allowed us to come on and talk about you. I wanted to have a conversation with you because I admire you. I would just I put it out there. I don't care what people think of. I've gotten to the point I just say whatever God had me to say on here.
Mhm.
I admire you. I admire the worshiper, the worship leader, the example you are in God's kingdom.
Thank you.
I appreciate what you're doing. And I know that there's a project you and I are going to work on. I have material um, from two people. I have a story that I think is going to be called a street soldier story.
Mm.
Poems of a street soldier story. We were talking about the ex offender project, and I believe,
Yes.
or offender project,
Yeah.
and I think I have some material from that's going to be called a street soldier. I've been playing around with this, but and just like you said, there's that birthing. And I
Yeah.
think when it's given into the right person's hands, which would be yours, that it's going to birth forth something in life, and not just healing for that person,
Yes.
not just healing for other people, but healing for that person. So I
Yeah.
just appreciate you so much for coming in, just encouraging the people that life doesn't have to be defined by what they're going through, what they see, or even that distance in the process of what they think their plan, and what
Yes.
when God brings the plan to fruition, and
Yeah.
then also trying to figure out where do I fit here? What
Yeah.
would you say to people that are listening now? Say, what would your some of your final comments or your remarks be to people that say, listen, we've talked about a lot of little different things here.
Sure.
We talked about publishing, we talked about issues, we talked about God's plan. What would you like for our guests to?
Yeah. I would say, to summarize it all, I pray that any of you who are watching today or are running across this, are listening to it while you're doing your work, you'll be reminded to know that no matter how difficult your life looks right now, whatever your challenge is right now, know that you're not alone and it's not completely unique. Many of us give up because we feel like our situation is the worst that it's ever been. We decide to divorce because we feel like, oh, it could never get any better. We decide to quit the job or walk away from the relationship or the assignment because we feel like, oh, this is terrible. It can never get any better. But I hope that you will realize that sometimes the most victory comes when we say give up your original thought about how it would look. That's what we're asking you today, to surrender. Surrender your original plan for the how. You heard God's voice accurately when he told you the what. You have relationship. You have, and for those of you that aren't even Christian, maybe we could call it instinct. You have an instinct most times of what you should do, who you should connect with. And it's many times our minds and that process that sabotages that
Mm-hmm.
original instruction. But what we're asking you today to do is take a look back at the what and give up your plan for how it will come together.
Mm.
Give that part to God. I'm telling you that no matter how long the process is, how difficult the process is, when God tells you cast the net, that's where the fish is. That's where the provision is. That's where the net breaks. That's when you get mind blowing blessings that could not come from any other place but to submit your plan to his purpose. And I pray for everyone who's launching a business, who's in a ministry, who's in a relationship, that can apply any
Mm-hmm.
of the nuggets that we've talked about today. That is the essential takeaway. I have a plan, but today I'm going to submit that process to God's purpose, because it's his purpose that will prevail. It's his purpose that will ultimately succeed and bring provision and bring joy and bring peace. There's a lot of
Yes.
labor when we're exerting ourselves in things, trying to do it our way. But my God, there is peace in that surrender. And that's what we're praying on everybody today.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That is a blessing. So, everybody who has joined us today, we've been here tonight with Dr. Nikia Hammonds-Blakely, founder of iChampion Publishing. And if you did not catch her website earlier, here is her website. Please
Yeah.
go to her website, find out how you can just connect with her organization and the different platforms she have to help you be whatever the best version that God has for you to be. Dr. Nikia, again, thank you for joining us tonight on Tuesday Talk Live. Guys, I will see you again next week on